Corbin. Thanks for coming
Hey,
out today.
gorgeous day, man.
Yeah. Wanted to kick this off with giving a little bit of background on yourself and what you do, and then we'll
Sure.
go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Corbin. So I'm a realtor here in Langley, Cloverdale, Surrey area. Been in the business for about 5 years now. I thought I'd just jump on and have the chance to chat to you and let everybody kind of see what's happening to the market, chat a little bit about real estate, about the difficult realities everyone's going through, but hopefully keep it light and have a few laughs along the way. My background, yeah, being in real estate, is we're seeing obviously an unprecedented turn of events when it comes to the real estate market, it comes to the housing market in general. Obviously with COVID-19, hour by hour, things are changing. So we can probably get into a lot of that today. But yeah, just my hope that, maybe we can have some useful information for people, help folks out who are having a tough time, like all of us are.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, actually, it's very timely that, and I like the fact that right over your shoulder it says hustle and limitless, because the market's shifting.
Yeah.
People are asking, it's like, well, is the market retracting? And the economists are saying that, like, by the end of the year, the retraction will be 1.1% of GDP, which, like, 1% is not a whole lot. However, a lot is shifting, right?
Yeah.
And it's shifting into different things. So, like, I mean, I actually got off a call, as an example, with a guy that was like, I cannot hire fast enough. I need drivers. I need people in the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I need people doing this, that, salespeople. Like, and he's like, I need to hire 30 people in the next 30 days or more.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, other people are being laid off. So it's about that friction between people switching jobs, rather than like, well, did all the jobs disappear? I mean, some of them did, but there's other people that are hiring dozens of people at a time in businesses that frankly aren't that big. Like, he has like a 50-person business. He's trying to hire 30 people.
Wow.
Right. Wow. But how this relates, I guess, to real estate, I mean, I'll give you my observations, because I mean, I'm a real estate investor myself, as you know, Corbin.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm putting actually one house up for sale, which is up north, just to test the market. Like, and if I don't get the price that I want, I'm going to keep it. It's cash flow positive. The province has given, like, investors a bit of a break on getting some money. Yeah, you can't evict people, but they're giving us some money, which is like good enough kind of for now to.
Do you mean the deferrals? Is that what you're talking about, or
there's deferrals, and apparently they've like announced this thing where you can get around $500 per renter, I think. And our mortgages are really low, so.
Right. Yeah. Hour by hour, that sort of thing's changing. We'd love to hear what you've heard on that, because I think all of us realtors, literally by the hour, we're trying to pass out more useful information, and it's changing by the hour.
I agree. Like, the amount of information is incredible, and it changes. The only reason I'm staying up to date is specifically because, like, my accountant sends me updates, but they're not easy to understand either. And you get conflicting information. So, I mean, disclaimer, like, right now, like, this is what I understand. This isn't necessarily what's true today. But I mean, I've heard that there's like some relief outside of the deferrals, and they're paying about $500, like, if a renter isn't paying or something. I have to look into it more. But yeah, like, I'm seeing listings happening. I'm not sure why. Like, maybe people think that their house's value is going to go down soon. I have no idea. But I have seen a lot of listings. What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I could literally pinpoint it to last Monday, which I believe I think it's the 16th or something along those lines. So literally the market was just starting to experience in the end of February, a crazy uptick. Things are on fire, multiple offers like we haven't seen since 2017. So because of all that action, I mean, the market definitely was on the way up, and things were bidding themselves up. Prices were going up, activity was going up, volume was going up, and literally that came to almost a standstill last Monday. So I think that's the 16th or 17th. We had open houses previous to that, and it wasn't really any direction of the government or the BC Real Estate Council, or BC Real Estate the council or whatever. They weren't saying that we couldn't do them, and nope, the public wasn't really too concerned really up until after last weekend and all the new mandates came out. So because of that, literally the media bombarding us with all the new changes, everybody panicked. So everything went, in terms of activity, it went haywire pretty much last week. So to answer your question, what are we seeing in the market? What are we experiencing? Right now, uncertainty is probably the biggest word I can say. We think without question, there's almost no doubt in my mind, if you look at all the economic indicators, employment, job loss, people relying on government services and government subsidies. I mean, the incomes are being wiped out. Down payments and wealth is being wiped out, whether that be you losing your wealth because you have to pay your rent and you lost your job, or if you have money in the stock market like some of our clients do, that just got wiped out like 30% for a lot of people. Retirement plans, things of that nature. So we're seeing that there's a lot of activity in small spots right now. We're seeing a lot of hype to either buy a place before you lose your job, or sell your place before you lose your job, or move before things get crazy. And every long-term indicator is kind of suggesting that everything's going to come down. It's without, I mean, I don't want to be a doom and gloom, and if someone wants to give me an arguably a better point why things may not, that's great. But I mean, for example, 1 million people last week applied for unemployment insurance in Canada. Now, my understanding was last year at the same time, it was something like 27,000 during the same week. That's a 40 or 50 times increase in the amount of people applying for social assistance, indicating they probably lost their job, their incomes, which is what drives your ability to buy a home. So with less buyers, how could the market increase? So it's just a matter, I think, of where the bottom's at, how fast it'll come down, and how we can all, buyers and sellers alike, how we can all get through this together and try to make the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it was 1 million. Like, that's an incredible number. I would speculate on the fact that, hospitality workers, that's a clear slate wipe. Like, I mean, if you had 40 people employed at a restaurant, or 60, it's like you might maybe retain your GM, if that.
Yeah.
And then and then you're letting everyone else go. So, I mean, how many of those are hospitality workers? I would say a lot. I heard a figure like the Keg laid off over 10,000 people in Canada or more. And it's like, that's just one restaurant. Right. So, I mean, so to your point about 1 million, it's like, well, that's a big percentage of the labor pool. When it comes to real estate specifically, I wonder how many of those people really, well, maybe not in other areas of the country, but specifically in our area of the country, how many of them could really even afford to buy a house, given the fact that prices are very high anyway.
It's a bit of a domino effect, right? So I think the way to look at it is nothing's in a vacuum. So you look at, long-term economic indicators of employment rates, vacancy rates, rental prices, which all correlate with real estate specifically. And for example, my old profession, I used to work in the health and fitness industry, and I worked for a great company, Steve Nash Fitness World, formerly Fitness World. Loved it there. Probably the best place, you could work if you're in the health and fitness industry. And I've a lot of close and dear friends of mine who worked there with me for several years. Some worked there before me and were there after me, and they just laid off. And my understanding is indefinite. They just laid off everybody and shut their doors. They employed, from my understanding, over 2,000 employees. So you've got Steve Nash Fitness World, Steve Nash Sports Clubs. You've got the UFC gyms, Crunch Fitness. They were all under the same umbrella group. Every single one of those people just woke up to an email on Wednesday that, hey, we're closing our doors indefinitely. These are from the front desk staff that were making, $12, $15 an hour, to top level executives and managers and close friends of mine who were making 50, 60, 70, 100, over $100,000. Like, these were their careers they worked at for 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and all of them just got wiped out. So, I mean, you've got industry after industry like that. And like you said, right, hands-on businesses like the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, every single gym, every small situation that requires physical contact. You can't do a Zoom call like this to work out. Unfortunately, I could personal train you over this video, but we can't, I can't put you through a workout, right? You can't buy my gym membership. So based on that domino effect, to go back to your other question, I mean, the ripple effect or domino effect, whatever you want to call it, is going to affect all sectors of our society. And I think that no matter what, because, housing, whether you rent or whether you buy or sell, everybody needs a place to stay. So when everyone as a total country comes down a notch, that has to affect valuations when it comes to real estate, and has to affect your rental rates as well too.
So based on that, would you predict something like people are going to start figuring out ways to downsize if they can?
I think people will try to, I'll take many of my clients for an example. The advice I've been giving is people are wondering, what do I do? I still have a job today if they're blessed to have one still, and they're thinking, should I be trying to refinance my home when I still have a job and the bank will allow me to take out equity, for example, if they own a home? In which case, my advice to anyone out there watching this: if you have a job still, you've got good credit, and you have a lot of equity in your home, you should seriously consider potentially, sooner than later, taking out that equity and keeping it as cash, keeping it as a safety net. It's hard to predict the day-by-day situation. And if you've got the means, get it. If you can get lines of credit at low interest rates secured against your home, get it. If they're high interest rates against your home or not against your home, get it. Get every piece of credit, everything you possibly can, because you don't know what's going to happen. I hate to be sky is falling doom and gloom, but in this market with this much uncertainty, if you lose your job tomorrow, you lose all your ability to refinance your home. It doesn't matter if you owe $100,000 on a $2 million home, you qualify for nothing if you don't have a job, meaning that all that equity, it's great, it's in your home, you could sell it, but if you don't want to sell your home, especially in this uncertain market, you better just take the equity out. So if you've already unfortunately had the dire circumstances of lose your job, look to see what programs are available. I was on a great call last night with a bunch of my close colleagues and friends, other realtors, and we were trying to look at different methods that people can apply for social assistance. So if you're a renter, like you mentioned earlier before the call, Nick, is if you're a renter, you can apply for, I think it's up to $500 per month or for a certain amount of time towards your rent to help you make that payment towards your housing. If you're a landlord, it's hard to say exactly. Every bank has different policies. You had mentioned there's some relief in terms of cash subsidies, which I haven't looked into myself, but there are deferral programs that vary quite a bit. So I'll give you an example, like an actual example. Scotiabank, from what I understand, is allowing, I think, up to 3 rental properties and your primary residence is allowing you to defer your payments. Now, I think if you've got rental properties, they're saying you can defer them for, I think, up to 3 months. And again, this is just what I've heard and read. The information is not entirely clear at this minute, and it does change like literally day by day. So all of you watching, do your homework, look it up, call your bank. At the end of this call, we can post a link below to the phone numbers of all the institutions. They have a hotline you can call, or they have a customer service line you can call. But yeah, that's my advice for anyone is try to, get cash in the bank, protect you and your family, do whatever you can. We don't know how long we're all in this thing for. So, whatever you can do to shield yourself, right? You need to protect yourself.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like any credit that you take, you don't have to use it, but you should get it, right? That's really like the lesson here.
Exactly.
To the point of unemployment, I do think that jobs are popping up, not at the rate that jobs are being cut, but I do believe that jobs are popping up at like a pretty fast rate for specific people. I mean, a lot of these are actually delivery jobs from what I've seen, or like warehouse management or things of that nature. Simply because, supply chains are being stretched. They're not used to like being able to have to pump up this level of product this fast. Yeah. So, the jobs are out there, but people need to aggressively look at it. Interestingly, on the call that I was just on actually as well, one gentleman has a series of franchises, and he said that people are simply taking the AI because they're like, I don't feel comfortable coming into work, which is interesting because like he has like a franchise where like he's actually protected them and like there's plexiglass between them and the customer and like the whole nine. And people are just like, look, like at the end of the day, like the hit that I'm taking on EI and all these other programs, like I don't need to give you an explanation. So I'm firing myself. Like I'm basically not going to show up to work, just FYI. And he's like struggling to find people to want to work.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of businesses are like that right now. A lot of like if you're like a house cleaner, for example, we hire house cleaners to help our clients out when they sell a property. Oftentimes, we have a house cleaner ourselves, and you would think, okay, this is a job that people are, they're by themselves in someone's home with all the protective gear. Maybe it's something that they want to do. Now they haven't declared, to shut down all those businesses necessarily. Some of these people are self-employed. That's their only source of income. So there's some out there, struggling, trying to figure out the safest way. Safety is the name of the game, to complete these jobs that they have. But yeah, I mean, I know someone who owns a cleaning company, and I think from what I understand, half of the 30 something contractors that work for her have decided they're just not going to work. And which is absolutely fair and good. And I think those people should have the freedom to, feel safe, whatever they do. But, a lot of people are feeling the squeeze. And I think you probably have, 90% of people who are in good faith, doing the honorable thing. And if they don't go to work, it's because they legitimately don't feel safe. And I think we should all, be advocates for people to want to feel safe. But then I think you're always going to have, no matter what, you'll have 10% of people, bad actors who are just, taking advantage of the situation and maybe not doing the what they know to be true. And if they have a job where they can work at home and they know they could and they could be totally safe, they may try to take advantage, which sucks, because that would take from somebody who's in great need and needs to take that time off work because they have a job which is unsafe and they need to stay home.
Yeah, I actually, I'm definitely seeing this. It's that small percentage of like bad actors that, spoil it. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I would say 95, even 98% of it is legitimate. Where it's like a safety issue, or like somebody has a sore throat or like whatever it is. And it's like, in this environment, it's like, well, something like that is a legitimate cause to stay home. And you're doing probably like society a favor for staying at home if you don't even feel well, right? Like,
absolutely. Well, I heard you guys at your company. I mean, you were on top of this from day one. Apparently, I was chatting to your team, and they said you guys basically before quarantine was popular. All the cool people were doing. You guys were doing it ahead of time, and probably protected your whole team and staff, better than most people did. We did the same thing. I mean, as soon as we learned about the nature of the threat, we decided that was time. I mean, we just, we have a job where we work a lot with the public, but we also have a lot of stuff that we can do like this. Like a lot of these Zoom calls are a great way to communicate. I can see your face, you can see my face. We don't need to be in the same room breathing on each other, giving each other COVID-19, but we can have a great conversation, communicate. And I've been doing that with the team, trying to do that with clients. Like after this call with you, Nick, I've got 2 back-to-back Zoom calls with 2 upcoming listing clients. And these are folks that don't need to sell right now, and I'm not even advising they necessarily do so unless they want to, but we're going to keep things as safe as possible. We're going to do the best practices. We're going to make sure that there's no unnecessary contact, and all my clients understand that. They fully embrace it. They know we're all in this together, and we got to do our part for society, not to risk the public. I mean, the sooner this goes away, the sooner all of us can get back to regular life, right?
Yeah, I mean, like on that note, I think aside from the gloom and doom of like, this thing looming, which I think is very real, there's a ton of opportunity in the market. Like not to be morbid about it or anything, but, whenever people's behavior changes, there's opportunity. It's just unearthing it that's not necessarily easy. Like an interesting thing that you said, Corbin, was like, I can absolutely train you, you just can't come into my gym. It's like, well, maybe those people that are out of a job need to like go on like Shopify or like Thinkific and do like a personal training coaching session, pre-recorded, live, whatever it is. And, charge like $20-$30 a session to do like, body weight workouts at home with like that people can do with like, milk jugs full of water or whatever it is. It's like, totally. That's an opportunity. But it requires for people to like really abandon the way that they've looked at the world now and just assume that it's like, look, never before has most people's attention been completely on their phone or whatever. Like, in advertising, we always used to say, it's like, you need to get people's attention in the first 3 seconds, otherwise it doesn't work. It's like, in today's reality, you probably have like 10 to 20 seconds to get somebody's attention. Because people have the majority of people have a whole lot of time on their hands.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
you make a super good point there. I mean, you think so. Back to what you said about the person with the gym. Maybe now they're a personal trainer online and they're doing video sessions. I think in any crisis, you look back and I've been have a lot more time on my hands now, Nick. So I've been studying a lot of good stuff here, trying to keep my head right. And a lot of the best innovations, the best inventions, some of the biggest leaps in our society in terms of just quality of life inventions have come out of crisis through entrepreneurial efforts. So I mean, I think if someone is a true entrepreneur and they have that mindset of make it work no matter what, which, the reality is, I mean, it's people like myself and you and other people we know who have that entrepreneur spirit, but majority of people may not. And I think it's important to think, okay, for someone who is not looking to pivot their job they just did into some self business, even though that may be the best, maybe there's folks like me and you who can, reach out to some of those people that we know close who, for example, lost their job. And it's like, okay, if you know a restaurant owner, how can you, as like the expert marketer Nick, pivot and say, hey Sally, how about we focus on trying to drive online attention through Skip the Dishes and DoorDash to your business specifically, so we can recover and recoup some of that income until this crisis is over? Because maybe they're not going to pivot so easy because they just don't have that mindset to like, hey, let's fire the 17 servers and bartenders and go completely digital, for example. But you're right. I mean, this market does create a lot of opportunity, and there's always going to be winners, big winners in a downturn. And I think if some of those people with those great ideas and people who tend to lean more that way, if they could help others around them and make it a win-win. And I've got some friends myself who I'm talking to, trying to offer them my advice, how they can pivot their businesses. One of them's in the food business, and we're talking about how we can, drive more. They do self packaged food and they advertise online. If they can, gain some market share and get more people eating healthy online with food delivery, because that's the safest way, when they come out of this, they could have more market share than any other food delivery companies, for example. But
absolutely.
It's case by case business, right? I mean, if you're an iron worker, or you're a sheet metal worker, or you're a construction worker, or you work in a crowded atmosphere where you have to be hands-on with your client, you don't own your own business, it's kind of tough to necessarily have the resources to be able to pivot and then just start your own business. So I think it's good that the government's put in place some mechanisms to help folks. And I think if anyone watching this has thought about what they could do with their business, like, there's a lot of resources out there, right? Reach out to Nick. I mean, this is what you do for a living, is you help businesses like myself market and grow and pivot and innovate. And you've helped us in a big way. So, I mean, if anyone watching this has a business, it's like, yeah, reach out to me. Nick will put you in touch with some good people. And there's a lot of mastermind groups that I'm seeing spring up, overnight on Facebook. Small business owners looking to, get these Zoom calls going, share their best practices. We're all in this together, right? So, I mean, whatever anyone can do to help each other, I think it's important to, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, it's like, great things are being done through the government. I mean, like, I don't know the details of them. I mean, as I said before, my accountant sends me all the like details on it. Small businesses do need a lot of help. They're not like enterprise level businesses where, like, enterprise level businesses, public businesses, like they run like huge cash liquidities, like 9 months of cash, years worth of years worth of cash, like even if the revenue's like zero kind of thing.
Wow.
Small businesses don't operate that way. And a lot of people need help, from what I've seen, cutting costs the right way. Because there's a right way of cutting costs and an ethical way of cutting costs, and then there's an unethical way of cutting costs. And there's also a right way of cutting costs in a way where, when the recovery does come, because it's inevitable that it always does, are you cutting costs in a way where you're not damaging your long-term prospect and your long-term sales when the recovery does come? Are you putting yourself in a position to win later on? It's a big deal. And what I like emphasize to most businesses is, like, you need to retain your employees at like almost all costs, unless, like, look, hospitality, it's like there's nothing to be done, because it's like, it is what it is. Like, if you can't even open your doors, what can you do?
Yeah.
But if you're in almost any other business that like doesn't have that personal interaction that you were saying, and you can be completely virtual, I always urge people, like, cutting costs through letting go of employees it's not just my opinion. Like, I mean, the data of like the last 100 years shows that companies that fire less weather the storm as a group and as a team, and like are very open in communication with their team about this is the storm that we need to weather, and
Yeah.
everyone pulls together on the other side when the recession stops or whatever it is. Those companies just blast everyone out of the water. Like, it's incredible. Like, and you're talking about, like, you know, there's winners and losers in an up or down tick. It's like the winners of the down tick are the people that can take care of their employees the most. It's really simple.
Well, and I think that's a great point. It's like if you are a business owner, and a lot of our friends and people maybe watching this have a business or work in a business in a high level autonomous management level where they're trying to still, you know, they don't own the business, but they manage the business. They're trying to make these tough decisions. Like you said, cutting costs. Like, I'll give you an example of what we did. You know, we understand and appreciate that, you know, if we took marketing to zero, for example, we could cut a lot of costs. We could cut a huge amount of costs. The majority of our expenses in this industry is oftentimes marketing. Now, if we do that, we'll see some short-term savings, but this business is, you know, there's a lot of people cutting costs. And if you can somehow find a way to be, you know, pivot, be more innovative, and, you know, maybe save money in other ways, you know, if you keep your head above water through a crisis like this, at the other side, there'll be a lot of people who don't make it. And if your marketing is strong and your branding strong and your reputation, you know, is still out there, then, you know, you'll be one of the survivors. So we're trying to innovate in different ways to save money. So, for example, you know, from our future listings that we're going to be doing, and some of the ones we just listed, you know, we're going to be doing some virtual tours. We're going to be doing some you know, video work that we didn't do before. We might do Matterport, which is a 3D modeling of a home. We're going to get the marketing out there the best we can to help our clients sell their homes in this uncertain market. But we don't necessarily need to, you know, we can't do open houses anymore. We can't be getting tons of people in close quarters. That's just not safe for the public. It's not safe for me, and it's not a good move for society. So we can pivot, we can be innovative and weather the storm. Like you said, when we come out of this, like, there's 4 of us on 3 other people on my team, and there's going to be, you know, 4 of us through the whole thing. It's not even a question if we're going to be, you know, having 4 people. It's just a matter of like, okay, what's it going to look like at the end? And like you said, strategically, we're ethically cutting some expenses. So instead of, you know, 17 bus benches and shelters, we've got 14. Instead of, you know, X $1,000 per month in SEL, we might do, you know, 20% less. But we'll pull from all areas, and we'll keep ourselves, you know, being strategic with it. And then, you know, at the end of this, like you said, if you can weather the storm and hang on to the folks that work for you and the people on your team, you know, you're going to be stronger for it. And you'll probably cut a lot of fat along the way. A lot of the stuff that's not maybe needed, but this shines a magnifying glass on your expenses, and you realize, wow, you can do the same job, maybe cut 10% expenses, and maybe out of this, when the storm's over, maybe you just never needed that in the first place. So small silver lining.
You hit the nail on the head there, because what we've seen, I mean, like, look, the market's been unbelievable for 10 years. And what we're seeing is that when we're going into clients, and like this was even like 5-6 months ago, we're going into clients and saying like, look, you can cut your cost by like 30 to 50% and get the same result, because they were doing things the same way for like 4 or 5 years. Because good times don't force innovation, because you don't need it. You don't need to examine your costs. It's like, hey, we just grew 20% last year, 10% or 5%, whatever that is. It's like, times are good.
Yeah.
Right. But in a downturn, if your industry is shrinking, if you want to maintain your revenue, you have to actually, like, you have to grow relative to the market to maintain your revenue. Right? Like, if the market goes down 10%, you need to grow by like 10 to 12% to maintain your revenue where it is today.
Yeah.
Versus the market, right? So you need a greater share of the market to keep your revenue flat. And it is possible. It's just difficult.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you've taken the right approach, right? Like, you're like, how can I get efficiencies out of here? Maybe, like, I know that I'm paying you the same amount for all these benches, but you know what? I know that, like, these 3, like, they don't get as much traffic as these other ones, even though I'm paying the same amount. So why would I do that?
Yeah.
Right? And then you're like looking at your competitors and being like, what are people cutting costs on? I'm going to go into those areas and not cut costs to have an advantage over those people, right? And that's what people like, it's not just about what you're doing. It's about what like your competitors in your industry are doing right
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Both of us work in industries that are very, competitive, of course. And, you're competing against lots of other marketing agencies, and I'm competing against lots of other realtors with our businesses. So, even through, all this stuff, it's still very competitive. And like you said, if you can find innovative ways to cut costs, but still maintain, the people that work for you and the team and the branding, you'll get out ahead. What I would say is a lot of people, obviously not in our situation, not in our position with a company or with a business or anything like that, is this can apply to your home. This can apply to your personal expenses. So to make this a bit more relatable for more people, if you got folks that are, thinking with their household budget, for example, oh my gosh, I just lost my job, and maybe the household income goes from 80,000 to 40,000. That's a very realistic, relatable situation for a lot of folks watching, because I know, because I'm talking to people every day, and one of the spouses will lose their job, unfortunately, apply for EI or whatnot. But you've got a very real situation where you've got maybe 2 weeks to a month of savings, maybe credit cards, maybe lines of credit, and you're used to spending X amount as if you make 80,000. So how do you now all of a sudden cut your expenses to reflect earning 40,000? You've got kids, you've got, all kinds of expenses. Me and my fiance Tina, we did the same thing. We analyzed our, expenses, and we both made some concessions, and just, short term, right? We're thinking, how do we make this work for the next 3 months or 6 months or hopefully 2 weeks? But how do we make it work? And like anyone, any family, you're going to go through a budget. If you haven't made a budget before, this will force you to be really critical of the expenses that you have. And it's not fun, but it's more fun if you do it over a glass of wine or a beer, and you try to make light of it, because we're all in this together. And you kind of go back and forth with your spouse or partner maybe, and say, well, hey, I'll stop eating out this way, and maybe I'll stop at Starbucks, and maybe we'll cut back here, and maybe there's things that you can sell. Maybe you've got a vehicle that you, as a toy or a boat or something that you don't necessarily need now, and in this particular time, it makes sense to possibly sell it if you can sell it for a good value. So I think like what we apply to our businesses, we're thinking that way, because that's our biggest expense, and our biggest income is our business. But I think for most folks, it's their house. It's hey, do we need to buy brand name clothing versus let's shop at Army Navy? Do we need to eat out this much, or can we take it back and just make more food at home? And oftentimes you can find 10-20% of your household budget you can cut overnight, and every little bit helps when you're trying to find a new job, right?
Yeah, honestly, like the budgeting thing that's one of the best pieces of advice, because rarely do people do it, because it's uncomfortable. Let's call a spade. Like, doing a budget is not comfortable. It never is. It's not for a business. It's not for an individual. It never is. And that's in the best of conditions. Like, even if you're like, oh, I stay afloat every month and now all's well with the world, it's still not comfortable, even if you're creating a budget where everything's fine, let alone when it's not, right? So, but it is the best piece of advice, because like, really quickly to your point, Corbin, like, you find things that you're like, I can absolutely cut this every time. Yeah. Especially maybe not on a month to month, but like when you start looking at like, oh, I bought a phone like 6 months ago, and I bought like an iWatch like 3 years ago. And it's like, you start adding that up on like a monthly basis, and all of a sudden it's just like, it's hundreds of dollars a month. It's just that you spend them in one specific month.
Yeah, once you amortize those big purchases, the new computer, new laptop, new tablet, new phone, you're right. Those are the kind of consumer goods that I'm assuming are probably taking a big hit. If you sell luxury, high-tech products right now, who's investing in a brand new gaming computer, or a PlayStation with all the it's, maybe some people are, because if they have the means and they're stuck at home in self-isolation, maybe they're actually doing better. I shouldn't say that, but yeah. A lot of luxury goods, I would say, are probably just like, if you sell Rolexes, like, are you going to sell a lot of Rolexes this week? Are you going to make those sales? Are you going to earn that commission, or are you going to make the profit? Probably not selling too many Rolexes. If you're a buyer of Rolexes, you probably steal one right now. Probably call a buddy with a Rolex and say, hey, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar. And there's always going to be winners and losers, but like you said, focus on your own budget, your household budget, your income that comes in your home. It's not fun, like you said, in the best of times, but like I said, do it over a glass of wine, a bottle of wine, a couple bottles of wine, and especially sit down with your spouse, and then you and your spouse after, you can sit down with your kids, or if you have any kids, and most kids will understand. Like if you sit down and say, hey, mom and dad are going to be, we're not going on any vacations for a while, or hey, we can't be, spending this much money per month for certain lessons or something. I mean, kids will understand, but if you get on the same page with your partner and you figure out what you can cut, I mean, almost everybody's got 10%, right? So 10% here, 5% here, apply for all the government subsidies, max out all the lines of credit, take out all the equity of any home or property you have, sell stuff you don't need when the market's still there. And, I think if everybody takes that mindset, more folks will come out ahead. And hopefully that'll ease some of the anxieties that, we all fear with just not knowing what's going to happen.
And I know that an unpopular decision from the standpoint of investors is like the whole, like, you cannot evict tenants, but honestly, like from like a societal standpoint, it's the right thing to do. Like, if somebody got laid off, the last thing they want to think about is like, can I live here? Right? At the end of the day. I own properties and it's not the greatest for us, but ethically it's the right thing to do. We're actually pursuing like the deferrals to even offer our renters like, hey, do you want to like, if you can pay like a reduced amount instead or whatever, like we're basically just communicating with our tenants, and we're just saying like, hey, like as long as like if your job's okay, cool, business as usual. However, if you lose your job, please communicate to us like ASAP so that we can do our part as well.
That's so smart. I mean, you're working with them, and we're all in this together. Like, we have a property manager actually who does an amazing job, and she's very communicative with our tenants. Because we have two tenants who, unfortunately, due to no fault of their own, just COVID-19, they just lost their jobs. Right? That's what was paying the rent, and I think one of them pays. They pay a certain amount upstairs, and another person pays a certain amount in a different home downstairs. And we're trying to see if we can get maybe a reduced amount. We're going to try to apply to defer those mortgages. So, we're not going to be out thousands of dollars, and they're not going to be out maybe thousands of dollars. And, hopefully they can manage to find some type of work and get some assistance, and we can manage to defer a little bit, and we'll take a hit. They take a small hit. And if we can do that, I mean, then everybody comes out of it, and it's not going to be as much of a crisis. Now, what you were saying about the eviction thing, I mean, I can speak to that. I've had because being a realtor, I've had my DMs like blow up from people who are investors or tenants, people who are renting. They're wondering, hey, under these circumstances or those circumstances, can I be evicted? So if you look at the order carefully, it was not. It was talked about that if there's like a criminal offense or extraordinary circumstances, that evictions could stand. So I've got tenants asking me, hey, my landlords just sold my home, and the buyers have an order of vacant possession, which is typically a lawful eviction notice with proper notice given when somebody sells a home. I've also got a property I just sold, and I'll be talking to my client actually after this call about it, where the tenant, a great tenant, amazing tenant, was basically concerned about the place selling, which it did sell, and the buyers are moving into it. So the regular lawful notice for possession from the buyers was about to be given, but that was an hour after the Prime Minister made the announcement about evictions. So you've got an order from the highest level of government that just came down saying no evictions, hour apart from when notice is being served. So it's untested. It's uncharted waters. What to do? Can these buyers perhaps delay the dates so this person can have a more comfortable transition? We're trying our best to help the tenant find a home, because, if we can help them find a place, then it's a win-win for everybody. But we just don't know what's going to happen. So I think if you're a landlord right now, you should be really researching this, calling Landlord BC. I know they're all working remotely, as my client just told me. Actually, a buddy of mine just told me they're working remotely, so it's tough to get a hold of the BC Landlord Society or whatever it's called. But try. They're going to be the experts and probably the first to know the latest information. And if you're able to, accommodate something for your tenants because of this new act, maybe the other party in the transaction, the buyer of your property, has to accommodate later dates. I don't know. Nobody knows. Not lawyers are looking into it as we speak. I've already talked to 2 lawyers. If you're a tenant and you're worried about, hey, my landlord just sold my home. Gosh, like, where am I going to go? I lost my job and they sold, and they're giving me 2 months to move. I mean, it's horrific, right? That's a terrible situation. We can all imagine the anxiety there. So talk to the BC tenant or the residential tenancy branch and see what direction they have from the government in terms of ability to be evicted. Maybe there can be some sort of deferral of dates where they have to give you more time, or maybe there's a way to accommodate that, or pay for something to help you with that move. I don't know if the government offers that, but these are tough questions, and we're getting them every day, and the answers just aren't there yet. So I'll probably know more today. So if anybody watching wants to reach out to me if they're in either situation, just DM me after the call, and I'll probably know a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I didn't think through even the implications of like selling a home, and then what happens if that person just lost their job? How can they even get another rental? It's like, hey, I'm applying for this, basement suite or coach house or house. It's like, but I have no job. It's like they're never gonna get picked up. Like that's a huge problem.
Yeah, no, there's I mean, the job loss situation is obviously the most horrific, right? Anyone who loses their job is it's devastating. It's beyond anything. So, I mean, like you said, the tenants have their tough situation. There's landlords and owners that have their tough situation. Everyone's in this together. I mean, if everyone could take a bit of a reasonable, compassionate approach to the other side and realize no one's trying to screw each other for the most part, right? People are just trying to pay their own bills, and when that conflicts with somebody else, the best thing to do is not fight about it, but try to come up with a solution. Most of the time, if you're honest and genuine with either your landlord or your tenant, and you just explain the situation, maybe you don't get your $2,500, maybe you get $1,700 that month, but maybe that tenant gets to stay in their home and they feel comfortable, and maybe they do find a job next month, and maybe now you're only out a little bit, but you applied for a deferral, so maybe you've still made your payment, and maybe they've applied for the grant, and maybe they get their $500. So there's just so many moving parts at this stage. Nobody knows for sure, but I'm encouraging anyone, because that's on everybody's mind. That's what I've been getting all day, is about, what do I do if I'm a landlord? What do I do if I'm a renter? So yeah, there's new things that are going to come out soon, which will give us more clarity, and we hope that'll come soon.
I mean, what I would say, I have no crystal ball. I'm not like a foremost expert in any of this, but I do believe that they can't freeze the real estate market for that long, right? Like in the sense of like sure, you can't do showings, things like that. You can do the virtual tours, which is like probably good enough, but home buying and selling is for the government a huge cash cow based on the fees that the government collects, and also like it moves the economy. Like, I mean, construction is a huge part of the BC economy. Like, if people aren't moving around, not doing renos, not building, like buying and demoing houses and building them, like, I think it's one of the first things that they're looking to really see if they can unfreeze it and like resume business as usual, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, in Ontario, when they made the declaration of what is an essential service, real estate, anyone involved in real estate, in law, like lawyers, judges, we're all deemed essential. And people wonder, well, how does that, from someone who's just the perspective of what, why is a lawyer essential service versus, the restaurant owner who just had to shut down, for example. I mean, it's institutions, right? They're trying to protect the institutions of law and order, the institutions of housing and homes, and that's obviously one of the biggest sectors of the economy. So they're trying to protect the institutions and making some tough decisions. And obviously the hope is that some of these folks that have been not declared an essential service in Ontario and have had to close up shop maybe for good can hang on just long enough to get through this, open up shop, and then hopefully everyone who's managed to keep their jobs and their businesses are able to go support these businesses in their community and get them back on track and help them get the money back. Because once a place closes up shop, you're a small business owner, well, there's no jobs to go back to. That was the job maker. If you have 17 servers and 6 bartenders, well, you close up shop for good. You've just told 33 people they got to find a brand new job, and there's no way to get through it without working somewhere else. And that's where we talked about before, the domino effect. Why do I think the market's going to more than likely keep on coming down and have some adversity? It's the domino effect. It's if you look at all the jobs, I mean, you need a job to make money, you need money to buy a house, you need a down payment to buy a house. If you mess with two of those three things, how would that support higher prices? You know what I mean? It's backwards. So yeah, I think at this point it's just a matter of, how people can help each other, how people can follow the protocols. I mean, I'm sure you've seen all the pictures of people on the beaches, people at Stanley Park, just hanging out and having a good old time and not caring about COVID-19. And all I would say to those people is that, hey, there's, those folks that I know and that have all lost their jobs, who would gladly try to go to work to support their families because they're going to lose their house or their basement or their rental. And, they're not breaking the rules. They're social distancing. And then there's folks that have nothing to lose and they're just, willy-nilly on the beach, like, within inches of each other, causing this thing to last longer than it needs to. So I would hope that behavior is completely stopped, but I mean, you can't control everybody, I guess.
To your point, like, I mean, and you mentioned it earlier, like Blue Meta, like we've been, basically telling people to work from home for weeks now. And before it was like a huge issue, as like in terms of like government mandate or anything, because it's like, look, it's like we just saw the writing on the wall. Like, it's like if you look at the aspects of this thing, it's like you can have it for 2 weeks and not know. And very quickly you see the domino effect of like health and like, people are like, to your point around the beaches and, Stanley Park, et cetera. It's like, oh, like I'm young enough that like the odds of me surviving this are incredibly high. It's like, yeah, but that's the wrong way of looking at this. Like, the longer this perpetuates, the more likely you are to lose your job. If you're not worried about your life, be worried about your employment, right? Because it is a domino effect. Everything's connected in some way, and it's connected in ways that like we generally don't understand unless we're like very senior economists. And beyond that, it's like the responsibility of like, well, taking care of people that, are at risk. If you get it and you potentially spread it to them, it's like, that's on you as well. And like that should bear on your conscience. I think we've left like once in 2 weeks just to get groceries, and that's it. And it's like trying to do our best. But I mean, and not everybody can do that. And if you need to go out there to like work and to feed your family, it's like, I get it. It's like, you have to do what you have to do. But like, when it comes to leisure, it's like, that's a tough one.
Yeah. So how can we end on a positive note, Nick? I mean, all this talk, everyone's, I hope there's been some, useful ideas in there, but I mean, it's fun just to, lack of a better word, shoot and kind of just connect with other people. Cause I think a lot of us are feeling isolated. And, if I would say anyone who's feeling isolated, try jumping on more of these Zoom calls. I mean, I saw a thing, Nick, that Gary Vee posted. He was like, imagine if this was not, what did he say? He said, imagine if this was 1988 and this happened and we had no cell phones, no FaceTime, no video conferencing. And we were all legitimately stuck in our homes with no technology to reach people. And you look at, last year before this COVID, how demonized was technology for taking us away from the personal touch and communication. And it's all perspective, right? I mean, that's a funny point to make, but it's like, imagine if this was 1988 and we were having this call on, old landlines and we're not seeing each other and you've got a tape recorder and you're trying to, how are you gonna put this out on social media? There's no social media. It'd just be us having a conversation, shooting, and we'd feel a lot more isolated. But we've got social media. We've got ways to connect with people. We've got, you can FaceTime your family. You can have a night. Like I'm going to plan a night this upcoming week with a few buddies of mine, and we're going to do a video call, and we're going to have a couple beers, and we're going to shoot it like we would if we were just at the pub. And you know what? It's not as fun as being at the pub. Obviously, we'd be at the Clayton pub right now if that was the case. But obviously, right? But I mean, it's what can you do, right? You gotta enjoy the time, enjoy what you can enjoy, because we're all, there's like the mental health aspect too of being isolated and not leaving your home. And if you live by yourself, I mean, that's even more compounded. So I think on a positive note, I think what people can do is obviously stay safe, wash your hands, do all the things that we've been hearing, and just listen. I mean, the faster the more that we listen to those rules, the faster this will go by, and you'll be able to go back to work. You'll be able to go back to the movies. I mean, I think our world will probably have a different way of doing business for some time, and maybe indefinitely, which might be positive, might be a small silver lining from all of this. But if you focus on the doom and gloom and the market and your stocks coming down and all that all day, you're just going to go insane. So do all the safe things. That goes without saying, but try to save your mental health, and you can still go for walks in uncrowded places. You can still get outside, sit on your patio. Don't just be stuck inside. FaceTime anyone you can. There's a new app called I think it's called House Party. Have you heard of that one, Nick?
I think I saw somebody using it.
Yeah, House Party. So a few buddies of mine were telling me about it, and I looked it up, and you can have like 20 people on this, similar to a Zoom call. And, I had a friend of mine who did it last week with all of his buddies, and they were all like cheersing and having a beer and eating dinner together. And it was like a dinner party, a virtual dinner party. So, I mean, you can alleviate some of that anxiety and stress by trying to socialize with people you love and care about. And then last thing is from my perspective, just being in real estate, biggest expense for anyone is always their housing expense, 9 times out of 10. So if you can find out a way through, if you're renting, talk lots to your landlord. I mean, most people are good people. I mean, you're going to find, 95% of people are compassionate, caring people and don't want to be evicting you or having any friction there. They want to work with you. So if you talk to your landlord, reach out, find out the resources online, talk to, the tenancy branch and find out, what's available. They've got great resources on their website. Some of them, excuse me, sorry, Nick. Some of them, Nick mentioned, you mentioned were $500, per month for a certain amount of time towards your rent, which is huge. $500 can be half your rent paid for if you're in a basement, perhaps. And then if you're a landlord and you're challenged with maybe your basement suite tenants not paying, and maybe you lost your job and you can't pay your mortgage without that payment, talk to your tenants. I mean, if it's a surprise on the first how much money you're getting, it's not going to be good for anybody. But if you get ahead of it, you talk to them, have a compassionate conversation, understanding conversation, hopefully, they can pay maybe most of the rent or half the rent, and then maybe you can get a deferral on your mortgage payments. And what I read the comments about, the interest. Oh no, don't do that because the interest rates. You know what? Screw the interest. If you can defer something now in a time of crisis and you pay more money later when you've got a job, you probably don't care. I mean, if you need to do it, do it. On the other hand, if you're in the boat of someone who doesn't need to defer it and you've got the means and the wealth, I mean, I would say morally and ethically, this isn't the time to be applying for all kinds of subsidies if you're not in need, because I mean, you're taken out of the hands of someone who does need, and that's a problem. So, be responsible, but take advantage of the programs. That's why we love it. I love this country. I mean, you've got, a government that's reaching out to give us some help in this time of need. And then, like you said at the beginning of the call, Nick, whatever you can do to pivot your business if you are in business. And I know that represents maybe a small amount of people who would ever watch this, but, try to find ways to pivot. Reach out to Nick. I mean, you're the expert marketer. You know different ways to innovate and pivot your business, whether it be a brick and mortar to an online or delivery from a come into the store. I mean, there's ways to do it. They just lifted bylaws when it comes to delivery today. Does that mean you can open up a beer delivery service? I don't know. But let me know if you're watching this, because I'll call them right away. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do, and just have patience with people. Be compassionate. I mean, this is some weird shit. I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think that if there's one good thing that's going to come out of this whole situation is that it's going to force people to communicate more. I think that in a very busy world where it's like, business as usual, like whether it's like you're going to a job, whether you're a business owner, whether whatever, it's like there's a lot of like just like, yeah, things are going, they're fine, and it's like you don't really get to know people. You don't have to be purposeful in making connections with others. Now you do. If you don't really carve out that time to connect with others, you're not going to. So for some people, they'll be like, cool, I don't like people. But like after 3 days, you like people if you're isolated, right? Like trust me. Even the most introverted of people are going to be like, I kind of want to talk to someone, right? So I think that's the best thing that's going to happen. I hope that as a society and like as a human race, like we learn how much we depend on each other out of this. Like that's really like my 2 cents, because I do not think people really truly understand how interconnected we all are, like to the real extent that we are. So hopefully that's like, for me, like that's my wish list item. Like, hey, hopefully people understand how important everyone is to each other, whether you know them or not.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of leave it there. I hope we can do more. I hope we can do more of these. And yeah, I mean, I don't know who's going to watch this, but anyone watching who wants to reach out if they've got a business and they want to, shoot shit about ideas. My schedule just opened up quite a bit, guys. So happy to chat business, politics, my 2 favorite topics with anybody. Anyone who needs marketing advice, I mean, talk to Nick. He's the expert. But other than that, that's all I got for now. So why don't we maybe hopefully get on a call sometime soon again and check in, and hopefully we'll be having a little more uplifting conversation, eh, Nick?
Or virtual beers.
Yes. Well, next time we got to bring beer to it, because that'll go a long way.